game yesterday where Rogue went for an early invade with a Draven and Braum, which generally you'd expect to go well, can still be outplayed if the enemy team is ready. I am happy to see this early LeBlanc pickup. I think that obviously Aria's performance domestically and also what we've seen at Worlds thus far on it is incredible, but the pick provides so much pressure, both in combination with a jungler as well as later in the game. This pick away of the Talon though is big because that is what Steel has looked the best on. Yeah, it looked absolutely fantastic. We heard Perks talking about LeBlanc yesterday, saying that the champion is pretty strong. I'm paraphrasing, yes. Of course, as now Jiejie thinking about what he wants to pick up here, and that is the Jayce. So I actually told a lie. It wasn't the Lucian that Flandre has played before. It was in fact Jayce. So he's going to stick with 50-50 on Jayce Graves so far at the World's group stage. Of course, we all know Flandre has been playing for a heck of a long time. I believe debuted on Snake in 2014, so I think he has a bit more of a repertoire than that, but never mind, not going to see it so far this game, as Steel going to take away the Xin Zhao, going pretty standard here on the side of DFM. Yeah, there's a lot of power in the early game with what they have here already, but there is obviously the ability to poke later on with LeBlanc, and it is a champion that screams Aria's skill expression, right? We saw him play extremely well on multiple champions in MSI, where you expect this player to pop off, right? And we'll see if the counter pick here comes through for the Jayce early, because Jayce is one of the toughest champions in League of Legends right now in the meta to say, okay, there's a strong counter pick. Wukong is one that comes to mind, but it's not really in the wheelhouse here for DFM. They're going to go back to the Poppy pick here very early on in this draft, but it's rising in popularity right now. Look at that win rate, 75% here in Worlds. And what we've also seen is that even when teams pick up the Poppy relatively early, as is the case here, it can be hard to really kind of take into account how much impact that Statford presence has. We've seen teams still draft champions that kind of rely on dashes to a certain extent. And I think that the Poppy has slowly started to rise in priority throughout the tournament, because the pick in a lot of occasions, outside of the obvious value that you get from denying dashes at will and being able to both play offensively and defensively with that, the pick itself is just also strong, right? It has a surprising amount of burst. It has a lot of resistances that it gains naturally. And this is a classic neutralizing pick that comes out there in the Lissandra, which has been all right, but thus far, I gotta say, I think in terms of what we've drafted it early, I like what DFM have got. Yeah, if you remove the nameplates, I definitely agree as well. I mean, 3 top-tier picks here in this meta right now off the get-go. Yeah, and also the fact that the Poppy is a flex, you know, technically triple flex, I guess you could say. Gaeng could play that on the bottom side of the map if he would like to, but still keeping things up in the air. Not likely to be going into the jungle, considering the fact that Xin Zhao has already been picked up. We'll see how that does go. Is Draven going to be taken away from Viper? Of course, Viper's champion pool not really going to be touched. He's played 3 unique champions thus far, but the Ezreal was one of them, so not going to be playing that one, and we'll see whether that is where we're going to continue focusing here as far as the DFM bans are concerned. The Kai'Sa is something he's played a lot as well, but doesn't really fit into this draft as much as it's fit into other Lee Sin drafts we've seen from Edward Gaming here, so I do like this Aphelios ban a lot more. It's still possible, you know, you have a lot of poke and engage with this composition. You can have the Kai'Sa follow-up there with the Killer Instinct, and it has been what he's preferred, but it looks like he's going to pivot over here to the Misfortune. I actually really like this Aphelios ban, because with the Ezreal ban, you also clearly see a sign from EDG saying, hey, we're looking into getting that Aphelios, right? Like, if you ban away the Ezreal, even if the MF would be picked up by DFM, we know how well Viper can play on that Aphelios and into the already short-range comp that was available for DFM. They don't want to take that risk, so instead they're going to go into the handshake that we've seen repeatedly. They give over the MF, knowing that you can get the Jhin to kind of neutralize. Jhin also works very well with the aggressive front line that DFM already have, especially when augmented by the Alistar. So you have a really strong, aggressive core that can play very far forward and can be augmented by Jin's support with the Curtain Call and his W. As a lot of this, the power in this DFM draft is going to rely on the poke damage coming through from Aria. If he doesn't hit that, then it's going to be hard to finish those targets off, even with the Curtain Call here from Yutapon, because this comp doesn't have a consistent damage dealer in its top or middle lanes. They don't have a mage that's going to be able to do long-term damage. They have the burst potential there, and if he could get ahead, obviously, as Aria, sometimes that doesn't matter if you could just finish those targets off. But later on into the game, I do worry about EDG's composition. If you can't get those kills early, there's so much mobility here with this Talon. The thing that I really love about the DFM comp, though, is that they've got Poppy. And what Poppy does is it means that if you've got a teamfight composition, you're not allowed to play it, because she just knocks a couple of them away, and then it's going to be a man advantage for one team.
as that is, of course, the Rakan locked away for Meiko on the bottom side of the map.
And that's, again, you're picking Rakan, and the pick will still hold value, but you're going to have to play so much more careful because there is a Poppy, right? You can't just go for the big engages that we see from this champion so many times.
Yeah, so that front line is going to have to be careful as Evi gives us the thumbs up. We're on our way onto the Rift for game number 1. The really cool thing about yesterday existing is the fact that DFM got here winning a tiebreaker against C9. Maybe that means that they are going to pick up some of that same energy moving into today's games. And I think all of us want this, because so far it looks pretty cut and dry when it comes to this particular group. Everyone on separate score lines, things like that. We really want to be able to mix this one up. Edward Gaming looking absolutely amazing. But also, I mean, remember, the last time we had a 6-0, it was in 2017. It was Longzhu Gaming at that time. Had to try and think to make sure, guarantee that it was exactly that team, because they had so many different names.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But here we are onto the Rift, and EDG, they could be the second team this Worlds to go 6-0.
It's also important to note, for those who didn't follow back then, that Longzhu was a Korean team, actually. Despite the name, you might think that was an LPL team.
Yeah, true.
You know, now is technically evolved into what we call DRX today. Didn't make this world, sadly, but I'm really excited about this, because as you guys are kind of leading towards Cloud9's 0-3 start, made it feel hopeless, right? And then you could prove, or they proved yesterday, that any team can get out of these groups if they have that miracle run. And no one believes that idea. Nobody buys into it, right? But when you see it happen right before your eyes, that's when you know it could happen.
Exactly. And it happened in 2017 as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, it's just one of those things, you know, every 4 years comes around like the Olympics or a leap year. You know, you've got miracles happening. Well, DFM, let's see whether they can make one as well. As Yutapon rocking the ghost skin is going to spot EDG making their way into the jungle. Now, look, we have to come back down just a little bit after what was a very exciting little intro there, but EDG have looked absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, no, they've looked incredible.
Not only here at Worlds, but also domestically, this team just looks so good.
And the thing that I love most about EDG, and this is something that Dom and Key also share with them, is the feeling of inevitability, that even if you do get a lead against this team, you know how incredibly clean they're set up around objectives and how clean the team fights are, right? And the combination of those two means that teams are also going to feel pressure to try and like kind of go for Hail Marys for 30, 70 plays that can actually backfire heavily, because you know that if you don't, it's going to be incredibly hard to actually get anything then later on. Now, if you look at the setups that we see here, Yutapon not going for the cleanse, which I don't think is 100% necessary, but is still going to feel very comfortable when you're playing up against Lissandra. That's always a big line threat. Going for the exhaust instead, which has been coming up more. I think it was Kumayushi and Carrier that went for the double exhaust, if I remember correctly. Not quite that far in, as DFM has gone for the Igniter as well. Evi also going for the grasp, which I like. Wonder how much trading capabilities Flandre is actually going to give him to kind of proc that. And Scout also going to the Aftershock, where we've seen a lot more Lissandras move away, go for things like the Electrocute, because Aftershock, of course, it's been a while, but it got nerfed a long time ago to
it got target nerfed because of this champion. Yes. That's why it got nerfed, and yet still.
It's not fair.
If you don't build resistances, it's not as good anymore. Because Lissandra didn't build resistances, and she never died, ever. Yeah, it was not great.
Well, it was great for the Lissandra.
Well, yeah, or the team for Lissandra.
Scout would say, let's hotfix it back to being the same as it was. As Jiejie making his way into the enemy jungle. Just going to get some vision down as Steel completes his wolf camp.
It seems
like
now
move in over this vision.
Yeah, there might be a little bit of a scuffle here.
A scuffle for the scuttle, you could say.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Steel waiting very patiently, but perhaps a bit too patiently.
Yeah, and also thinks that he was unseen, right?
Yeah.
But EDG knows exactly what was going on, and therefore they're able to just take this one away. EDG also going to be able to grab the bottom scuttle as well.
Double like this a lot. Start, yeah. This is a really nice start here in terms of controlling the vision, because the composition of DFM has a lot of power.
That's it. Grand entrance to come on forward.
Yeah.
But Gaeng just going to take a bit of damage here and he'll be all right.
This composition has a lot of power around this Xin Zhao pick early, because there isn't a lot of escape power for Lissandra, so if she's pushed up too far in the lane, you do need to have that extra vision to know when the Xin Zhao is coming through. That's so critical.
And here you already see the dominance from EDG, Prio in every single lane, and having Prio is one thing, but they very cleanly allow Jiejie to pick up the topside scuttle to ensure that there's no counterplay on the map available for steal. If Arya does actually find the shove back, which he does not, has to also extend this teleport here not to lose the wave, whereas Scout has already got a fresh back in, now able to also roam into the map, secure more vision. Second time we've seen this. Like, continuously, EDG is now already, they've been tracking steal, they've picked up every minor objective around the map, and this is exactly the type of play where EDG, they don't actually need to really do anything right now, they just need to make sure that DFM can't find any openings. If you play that way, it becomes a lot harder as DFM, if everyone is always tracked, to look for those aggressive plays that are so necessary for them in this matchup.
Yeah, I feel like the one lane where you're happy to just sit back and let it go is Evi's lane on the top side of the map. If Evi actually doesn't fall too far behind and ends up just having, you know, maybe a small CS deficit in the early parts of the game, you're going to feel okay with that because his job, as you guys point out in the draft later on, is just going to be able to turn these team fights into, you know, what was a 4v4 fight into a 4v3 or a 5v5 fight into a 5v4 fight. So that's kind of his role, and as long as he doesn't fall too far behind or get picked early, then that's good enough. But everywhere else on the draft map, that's where you need to look for those opportunities. And
I really love that it plays into Evi's strengths as well, right? Like, ever since he's been on this roster, and he's been here for a very long time, he's been that tank player. He was the guy that was playing the Tahm Kench top before it was cool, you know? And he's very, very good at that sort of style. He's not necessarily a laning top laner, but certainly very good in those team fights and has great game senses. Now Jiejie gonna find Steel, and I believe steals away the Wolf as well. And so things just not very fun for the Xin Zhao.
And again, it's incremental leads. EDG, no, we don't need to all in there. Right? There's no need for us to try and force a 2v2 against a Xin Zhao and a LeBlanc. That can backfire, even with Arya pushed in. Steel already falling further and further behind, right? He's a level behind, 11 CS. This next grab with the Prio the way it is, surely also going to Jiejie. Don't know if you can walk up, Steel.
Yeah, that's a face check, level 4 to level 5, as over the wall goes Scout. They're looking for first blood, and they should be able to find it. Jiejie is going to go down as well. Immediately, Arya pops him, and that's a 1-for-1.
Now, even though this ends up being a 1-for-1, every single part of this play from EDG was premeditated by Vision. They had a control ward there on the brush. They knew exactly where Steel was going to come. They knew the timing of that Scuttle Crab, and they knew exactly where he needs to be pathing. They even check with a Scryer's Bloom as well, right before this happens. You're a level up right now. You know you have lane prio, so you commit to the play.
And here you do also see a lot of the power that comes out early on and why this 2v2 is so potent. Because the amount of damage that Steel was able to get in with like just a little bit of health is still enough to allow Arya to actually get the blow up there. And now Jiejie.
Oh, very close. Wind almost became lightning to steal that one away. Doesn't actually happen.
I mean, look at the gap between these junglers right now. Nearly 50 CS to the 34 right now. I mean, this is really starting to take its toll on Steel's ability to have any power through this part of the game where normally a Xin Zhao is going to be so strong. We saw it in that skirmish, but he's falling further and further behind.
And look at EDG. They got a stacking tier in the top lane, you know, Flandre. He can sit relatively tight until he hits that Eclipse Manamir power spike. Viper has looked at the game and decided, guys, I'm not in a rush. I'm going to get a call. And that spike, once it comes through, is going to be, I think, very hard for DFM to kind of deal with. I think that EDG, as mentioned, won't shy away from a fight, but don't necessarily need to look for one. Display a controlling playstyle and then have faith, as they should, in their capabilities to, once we get into these mid to late game team fights, these first or maybe second objectives, their capability of playing the front to back in a way that DFM just can't really match in terms of how clean it's all set up.
Well, we've ticked over to 8 minutes, so Shelly is on the Rift right now. Jiejie just going to move on in, clear out this control ward that he knew about from before, as EDG might be preparing to head over and pick that one up.
Yeah, they're going to have to make a real committed call here very soon because the group up is happening here for DFM. You can see that on the bottom side, they do have prio, so toying with the idea of staying there as they have enough time here to rotate over as the scuttle fades away. Jiejie in a really nice spot here, actually, unseen.
Well, going to start off his red buff, and it looks like Steel will at least get the first bit of damage onto Shelly. Evi going to move on down. Wave equalized on the top side of the map. Flandre dealing with it right now. Scout going to move on in. On vision of DFM. Steel is just going to back away. Not going to fight off more than he can chew this stage of the game, especially with the position that he is in.
Yeah, I mean, now you're seeing the rotation up from Viper to catch that mid-wave, but Scout's here, so this is just perfect slow play from EDG. Push them off without losing anything on the map, without losing any resources.
And you see how slow EDG played as well, and how respectful DFM still feel like they need to have to play, because Gaeng was already roaming up. He was already around mid lane by the time that EDG said, okay, no problem, we know the timing windows in this. Viper and Meiko, you shove out the lane, they shoved it out, forcing Yutapon to stay there, roam mid to mid together, and recognizing the fact that at that point, EDG, they're already 1k gold ahead. You need to get a really good fight of DFM. If you can't find that, you can't really opt into it, have to back off, basically waste time trying to get an objective that they're not even getting. And now EDG further building their lead.
Well, that's an ulti to come through from Viper here, as Gaeng needs to be careful. Doesn't have level 6 yet. It's a decent headbutt, but I have a feeling Meiko should be able to catch up. But no, Viper is going to pick it up with a blast going all too easy. Caught clearing vision. Yeah,
that's just as simple as that. I mean, you're clearing vision, you're way too far out, just mistimed when the rotation was going to come back to the bottom lane there and gets punished for it. Stays too long, way too greedy there, and that's a lot of extra gold going over to Viper, who, as you mentioned, Cronicler is already building towards that coal gold, and he's going to hit a really big spike, you know, around that second Drake fight if things continue as they are, and giving that extra free first blood gold over, or rather early gold here, not first blood, is going to be so massive.
Now, I want to go back to something that you said earlier, Cronicler. It's that feeling of inevitability, and EDG have started it very early in this game. You could imagine that DFM are thinking, like, we have to make something happen. We have to do something, but we're only 10.5 minutes into the game. We've only had 3 kills so far, but already EDG feel in complete control.
And that is the beautiful thing about how EDG has played thus far, and why people are so high on them, I think justifiably so, is because how clean it all looks, right? We saw Damwon yesterday, especially in the last 2 games. They were very good, but it wasn't necessarily clean. There was some liberties taken. There was some corners cut on EDG. They will have none of that. Now, it is not all bad news for DFM. Obviously, the lead thus far, not insurmountable. We've seen the power in like 2v2s, 3v3s that you can have with Steel and Arya. Yutapon can still make a big play as they go in on Meiko.
Yeah, he's going to grand exit though. Should be absolutely fine. Deadly Flourish not going to be followed up on or anything like that. As Scout's going to take some turret shots as Shelly's going to ram her head into the outer turret in the mid lane. Bunch of plate gold going over to Scout and Jiejie right now.
They have so much oppressive control over the bottom side of the map here. It's just such an easy Drake follow-up. There's no way that DFM can rotate through all this brush without any vision whatsoever. They don't have mid-prio. The turret, you know, just lost a bunch of plates there as the Herald crashed through, and now you get a free Drake, so you have even further this small advantage. And EDG, they're playing with no egos. They're not playing to prove anything. They're only playing to win, right? And I think in the Damwon game you're referring to, Chronicle, there was a little bit of showing off going on. There was a little bit
dare you, Wolf?
I want to 6-0 this group and make people remember the last game, whereas Edward Gaming here just saying, no, we're going to 6-0 this group in very careful fashion, not going to take any risks. Why give DFM the same chance that Cloud9 had yesterday?
Well, I mean, this is also the first game, and if you go back to Damwon versus FPX, that was definitely a Damwon that was playing discipline.
True.
Maybe we'll get some happy gaming EDG after this when they have secured their spot.
It could happen, but based on what we've seen so far, I don't know how likely that is. I do gotta say, like I said, and we'll go a little bit more in depth because I was a little bit worried. You know, maybe this was going to be a very aggressive game, but this far not happening as much. I say this.
Flandre is going to flash the ulti. Evi's going to have to flash as well. Flandre wants it. Not going to quite have enough damage with the shock blast at the end, but definitely the fear is in as now Arya has to get out of there. Scout teleported in. That is going to be Steel actually flashing away. EDG just 3 steps ahead of DFM this entire game.
Yeah, I mean, you commit the teleport there as Scout. You're like, well, if he's going, I'm going. And you don't actually have to fight there. You grab an extra summoner spell, and it's just no risks, no chances. Not going to take a single one. It was such a great flash there aggressively from Flandre to actually dodge that ultimate, though. It doesn't end up leading to the kill. He's 1 auto away. But man, EDG not only looking fantastic, but so disciplined here. And that's the big standout so far in this game. We're at a 3-kill game where they have 3,000 gold to lead.
Yeah, I was building up to a joke about how this, for us LCK casters, this feels natural. This is the natural state of things. We're happy about this. You know, there's a lot of cross-map movement. Not too many kills, that always scares me a little bit. And thus far, I think if we look at the possibilities that the DFM do still have, because as mentioned previously, I think you're going to have to first be able to take back vision, which thus far they've basically been unable to do. EDG have been very diligent from the opening minutes of this game to always have a track as Evi can't do anything.
That's all the plates.
All of them
they fall down.
First turret, tons of extra gold going over this Jayce.
It's almost 2K. Yeah.
And this is unusual for Worlds so far, like you're saying, Chronicler, to have a Jayce get fed like this with no kills. We've seen a lot of mistakes in the top side. We've seen proactive plays lead to Jayce getting fed, but this is just macro. Straight up.
Aria's like, nope, no, that's not what I want.
Yeah, why not? Take the blue buff while you're right there. And it just showcases, while we're making a little bit light of it, like the sheer, the iron grip that EDG has in this game.
Yeah.
It feels like minute one, whenever there was a play, there was one little overextension from Jiejie, right, which still, it wasn't even trade, wasn't even a bad trade. But outside of that, they've been permanently shoved in. Only lane that hasn't really suffered is bot lane, and even there, Viper has built up a 2-wave lead. Is 5 CS away from finishing up a call, so naturally building an advantage there as well. And across the rest of the map, DFM just unable to match the individual level as well as the cohesion and safety that the EDG have been able to provide for themselves.
Some of the ways that DFM get back into this game just don't feel realistic considering EDG's safety, right? If you do overextend, or if you go too deep trying to clear vision and you run into Aria in the jungle alone, or if he's able to find somebody with the vision control that DFM would hope to have and maybe gets a pick there, then maybe you could 5v4 fight, but they're just not taking any risks. They're not walking into anything like this.
Yeah, Meiko almost did, as you attempted the cast curse. Didn't quite work out there, Wolf, unfortunately, because Meiko heads up. Not going to face check that rush. For good reason, as Aria heads on forward, but he immediately gets ulted and explodes. This is why the LeBlanc has a tough time in this matchup. But the fight is still ongoing. It's a decent heroic charge there from Evi, but he's still going to fall down. Meiko, in fact, is the one that picks up the kill. And EDG, a couple more on the board, and are now looking to pick up Shirley for their reward.
It's death by 1,000 paper cuts in this game for DFM. It really does feel like. I mean, you don't have any agency, and every time you try to, or every time it looks like they might make a mistake, they might walk too close, you could turn it.
Well, there's a headbutt pulverized, but the tower is going to fall down. The Unbreakable will on Gaeng will keep him alive for the moment, but EDG are just taking everything that they want.
Controversial statement. I think EDG's pretty good.
Whoa. When was that controversial?
Hey, I had him over FPX.
Okay,
I was one of the people who didn't...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was one of the people who said, okay, I think EDG's the strongest one from LPL.
I watched that podcast, Wolf. I can confirm that is, in fact, indeed what you said. As we're going to check this one out once again. Just it felt like they had no chance.
Yeah, there's no way you win this fight, unfortunately. And the curtain calls just feel so tragic, too, because nobody's low, nobody's gotten hurt, and you could shut down this LeBlanc when she tries to engage like that, of course, with Lissandra. Ultimately, we talked about it so many times, every time this matchup occurs. And now we're looking at a double Drake lead here. We are, again, 5 kills in, 6,000 gold, EDG ahead, 3 turrets, and it's just... just piece by piece, step by step, but they're starting to get a massive lead now.
And there you also see the problem. Then it's straight up 5v5, especially if you lose one of your most potent damage dealers. You're just not going to be able to actually kill anyone on EDG. The opportunity for DFM just isn't really there. Thus far, EDG have also, as pointed out previously, whenever someone goes in, there's always a buddy nearby, right? There's always the potential for maybe a collapse, for a rotation. And that is one of the main reasons why I think that what DFM could do against a less disciplined team is trying to catch someone that's going for a rotation, that's trying to secure an aggressive vision line, maybe goes for a face check, load him up with Aria Steel, and then try to turn it into a tempo play. But every time I slow down because maybe it will happen now, it's like, no. He's in full control.
Yeah. And they're now going to rotate here towards the top side of the map. This inner turret is going to attempt to be protected here by Aria and Yutapon, but 4 members of EDG in the area. Jiejie turns up as well. So DFM just not going to be able to save it. And this is just EDG, I feel like they're just stealing DFM's lunch money all over the map. There's no cross map as an option. EDG is so incredibly decisive. And now they're just going to waltz on into the mid lane and try and do the same thing here with the help of Shirley, as well as Aria is trying to poke her in the eye, but it's not going to work out. This turret does take a fair bit of damage, as that is the flash on forward from Steel, but they deny him completely. That's what Ring of Frost is very good for. As Evi's teleport not really going to do too much, as the Empowered Shock Blast going to soften up the members of DFM, as well as now EDG wanting to get the last few points of health, as that headbutt pulverize worked out. But Meiko's just going to quickness his way out, and the cow is going to fall. Grand Entrance going to also knock them up, but Meiko does fall down, and Evi's going to be able to knock one away, but it's just not enough. A double kill now for Jiejie. as DFM are just going to limp away.
And I understand the desperation from DFM. I understand why Steel flashes forward there, because it feels like there's nothing to do.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, too, is you've got the Ring of Frost, but doesn't even have to use his Everfrost to survive there. He teleports into a fight, and that's why DFM feel like, okay, we have this opportunity, because you're going to see Scout appear in the middle of, 4 or 5 DFM members here. It feels like it's a really easy collapse and commit, and does not work out. Now we're going back to this replay moments ago, where, yeah, you do end up getting that kill, but, I mean, and you get the knockaway, but you don't have that consistent damage afterwards. This is what I was talking about in the draft, where you have this very AD-based comp that has a little bit of poke with the LeBlanc, but the Jhin is too slow and the LeBlanc is too fast. They don't work well together when you're behind like this, especially when everyone on EDG is grouped up. You can't get any side picks. You don't have any pressure to look for picks.
Yeah, just no good news for DFM in that new Axe Effect replay, as EDG just continuing to put on the pressure. And I like that you mentioned, like, getting rid of Arya means that all of their damage is gone, and it feels exactly right. Like, Yutapon, yes, we've seen Jhin be quite successful here at Worlds so far, but he's not the same sort of consistent damage-dealing AD carry that a Misfortune would be. Is now I have to hold that thought as Arya's going to get taken down very low once again, goes back to his distortion, but Viper just puts a bullet in him as soon as he gets back there. And EDG going to take that kill and now look towards this bottom inner turret as well. Every time they get a kill, every time they take something, they're thinking about what more can they get.
Yeah, already the waves are in a good position. I think top lane shoving in as well. Someone's going to have to catch that eventually as they just bully him off the turret.
Yeah, and Evi just, I don't know where that ultimate was supposed to go, but a little bit of a waste of a helicopter there, unfortunately, and they lose their inner turret. So no more inners remain. It is an 11,000 gold lead. Only 10 kills have happened in this game.
I mean, this is like EDG look like they're farming up to start that T1 series with more levels. Like, this doesn't even look like a PvP game, unfortunately. Like, they're just grouping around like, all right, let's just secure all the gold on the map. Every single turret's going to go down. Every objective is going to go down. And it's just so passive, but yet oppressive at the same time.
Doing a few Mephisto runs in Nightmare before they go to Hell mode, I assume.
And those don't carry over, EDG.
Oh, Gaeng.
Yeah, Gaeng could be in trouble here as he's going to get the ultimate off. Headbutt to get Scout away, but there is still so much damage. The ult looked like it wasn't even there from the Alistar.
And the trepidation as well. Yutapon, he's like standing like, I want to go in. I want to help you so badly, but I can't. Yeah, in good conscience, I go forward. And this, to me, I think is also one of the beauties of competitive League of Legends. I say as DFM, I don't think you can move forward here. I don't think you can retake control. I want to go for it.
Well, Jiejie gonna throw out the rake as Steel. He's on forward. He doesn't really want to, but of course, deceptively tanky with the Crescent Guard available.
They just have no vision, like, whatsoever on any critical juncture where EDG is going to play.
They don't have a jungle. Well, yeah. It just doesn't exist.
There's like there's no proactive play to make because you're blindfolded. I mean, you can't do anything if you don't know what's on the other side of these brushes, what's on the other side of these walls, and every time they drop ore down, it's cleared instantly.
They're going to try and go for something here. Grouped up as 5 is DFM. They do not want to give away this Infernal Drake. It will be Soul Point, of course, is now Flandre getting a lot of damage onto Evi, down to 50% health now, as the Poppy is going to be so important. Look for that ultimate. See whether he can actually split up EDG. Jiejie going to start off this Drake. He's getting looking for a bit of a flank, but there is vision everywhere from EDG. They will not be surprised, and they are just going to take this dragon for free.
And as I was trying to say earlier, DFM has had the best tournament that the LGL has ever had. They've had an incredible performance in play-ins, but to me the beauty of League of Legends is getting to play-ins, or out of play-ins rather, is in of itself an incredible achievement. Hell, even getting into play-ins is an achievement, right? But then, even with how amazing that was for DFM and how good they looked, as you pointed out, got a pivotal victory over C9 as well, to then come up against EDG, like how big the gap is that we see, how incredibly in control EDG is just one of the, like, how much skill expression there is in this, right? Like how futile it feels for DFM, because since minute 1, they've been pushed in. They're pushed in permanently, so they can't secure vision. They don't have any vision, so they can't walk into their own jungle. They can't walk into their own jungle, so they fall further and further and further behind. And to see EDG just keep continuing that snowball is incredible.
Yeah, and they're just not overstepping their boundaries either. And The same could be said of DFM. The problem is that when you're this far behind, you do have to take risks. There are no good plays, but sometimes you have to hope. I think it's some of these upcoming scenarios in objective fights that maybe you can get that Poppy pick-off like you've been talking about Atlus so much, because that's one way you could maybe pull this off. You have a LeBlanc come in and assassinate someone like Meiko, who's been a little bit aggressively positioned clearing vision so far this game, but I mean, EDG are just so oppressive. Once again, just grouped up. They're not going to walk into this bush where they don't have vision. The one place on the map they don't have vision. There are 4 people here, so there's no risk.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of this does have to do with the fact that they didn't have a lot of priority from the beginning of the game.
Exactly.
Certain things in the draft certainly were a bit of a mishap, but the way EDG has navigated their way through this has just been sublime.
Because the big difference is having prio we see a lot, but not every team plays around prio as well, right?
Yeah.
Like actually weaves as one unit in and out and is able to turn that into an iron grip on the game. Also, if Viper continues the path he's on this game thus far, will be deathless for 4 games. Showmaker's record was 4, so let's see if he can keep it up.
Well, we'll see. Teleport to come forward here as Gaeng in position. EDG not taking any risks whatsoever as Scout moves on forward. They do manage to lock down the Matador, but he does have the ultimate. As Gaeng is getting taken down so low. Steel tries to keep himself alive, but they are just falling as EDG plow through DFM. It's clean so far, and it's only Aria that remains. EDG thinking about just moving forward and breaking the base.
This is one of those fights where Jhin is going to look at his weakest, right? Where he's trying to find that damage on the wrong side of the team fight as well. It's not over yet.
Yep, that's the flash on forward. Everyone seems to have a dash here as Viper's going to cancel the ultimate. Doesn't even seem to matter as that's going to be the ace, and I think EDG are just going to waltz through the top side of the map and end this one.
Yeah, when I said it's not over yet, I meant the carnage. The game was over at that moment.
Oh. What an incredible masterclass from EDG. From minute 1, there was absolutely no way that DFM could get in. They'll take down the Nexus and win their first game of the day, their 4th of the tournament.
And that's a sign of respect, I think, from EDG, because in the first game, let's not forget how well the LGO actually looked. DFM was able to find multiple early kills, was able to get a little bit of a snowball going. In the end, it wasn't enough. But in that first round robin, this matchup did not look as one-sided. And then EDG said, no.
You took away some comfort picks from DFM. You took away, you know, Evi's ability to play the Urgot top, for example. You bit the Jayce early, so you know you're probably going to have prio into any matchup that Evi's going to give you. And the draft was very safe and very careful. They basically avoided dealing with DFM's strongest points, which are always those early game skirmishes and fights.
Yeah, it was just a complete shutout, but as EDG continue their dominance of Group B by taking down DFM, we're headed for a quick break, but on the other side, Kobe, Dash, and Lyric will break down this game.